All right, we're live. Let's get those links out. I'm not sure if you know or not, Jack. You are muted.
Yep. Yeah, I was
Okay.
just muting it while Chloe's barking and I'm talking to Christine.
Raj. How are we sounding? We don't have any of that clipping, right?
Let me go into YouTube right now and make sure. Yeah, it sounds perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good morning, Pod Squad! It's the final episode of the season, and Walters and Jack have plenty of things to talk about. This week we have our water bet recaps, our podcast host playoff challenge, NFL bits and bites, some fan interaction, and lastly, we crown the 2020 Victoria's Secret Fantasy Football League champion. The Victorious POD starts right now!
What up, Pod Squad? It is your boy Walters here. Right next to me, I have my lovely co-host, Jack. Jack, what's going on? Say hi to everybody out there in YouTube land.
Not much. Hello, everybody. Ready to get our final episode of the season wrapped up and head into the off season.
How was your New Year's this year, Mr. Jack Vickers?
It was good. We did a little family get-together thing on Christine's side, and then went out for a couple drinks after that. So nothing too crazy, no 4 a.m. night, but we made it to New Year's. So that's always a success. How about you?
Fun fact, Walters did not make it to midnight. Rarely ever does.
Shocker.
It was a pretty chill night between the wife and I. The next day, though, that is when, over the last few years, we have gathered with her family. So her parents and her sister came over with her husband and kids, and we had just a blast. We had football, college football on. We were playing cards. We had pizza, we had beer. I mean, it was the New Year's Day celebration. It was way better than the New Year's Eve celebration, for sure, as it should be. Nobody wants to be feeling like doo-doo on the first day of the year. So right on, just want to say Happy New Year, Happy Holidays to everybody out there listening and watching. Thank you so much. We are the Victorious Pod, and you are watching the final season, or I'm sorry, not the final season. A few people might wish that, but it is not the case. It is the final episode of the season, and we just appreciate everybody for checking us out this year. It's been so much fun. It's been a huge learning curve. There's been bumps and bruises along the way, but overall, we are very happy that you stuck it out with us. Major thank yous go out to Mr. Levi Oki. He is responsible for all of our artwork for this season of the podcast. Thank you very much, Levi Oki. If you would like to subscribe to him, you can follow him on Instagram at Levi Oki Illustration. At Levi Oki Illustration. I'd also like to thank Mr. Garlic Johnson and the Audio Alex Williams. Both of these guys have been a huge influence on me over this past season, and I cannot thank them enough. Jack, it is now the third day of the new year, and it has been another long weekend. What have you been up to this weekend?
Let's see. We've been working on finishing our basement recently. We got all the painting stuff done there, so now we just got to put some flooring in so I can get the man cave area back, and then we joined a gym, or I joined it. Christine's already a part of it, but I joined it. So we're trying to do some New Year's resolution stuff going on. Otherwise, today we're kind of just being lazy. So last day of the weekend before going back to work. Nothing else too exciting for us. How about you?
Heck yeah. First off, the snap that you sent me of you singing along to Hootie and a Blowfish downstairs in your basement. It was quality. I loved it.
Hey,
Yesterday, I went ice fishing with a few members of the Hidden Oaks group. That would be the Bradley Knupp and Mr. Kyle, as they refer to him, or just Kyle. If people need to remember who the famous Bradley Knupp is, he is the one who decided to come into the closet at Josh and Nikita's wedding, and when Audio Al and I were there doing our podcast, and he thought that our digital recorder was a vaporizer and we were getting high in the closet. So fun fact, we didn't talk about that yesterday, but if you go back to season 1, which is not available anywhere because of multiple copyright problems, if by request, if the any of the league members want to check out the wedding pod, I do have a copy of that, and it is fantastic. Anyways, we were out ice fishing yesterday. And it was me and my dad, and I went out with Kyle and Brad. We caught some fish. It was a lot of fun. We were greeted by one of my dad's buddies who works for a company out in LaSalle, Wisconsin called Freedom Baits. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of them or not. They're just a small outdoors company. Ryan works, my dad's buddy Ryan works for this company, and he hooked us up with some free plastic baits yesterday for ice fishing, and it worked out phenomenally. So I just wanted to give him a quick shout out because what he did was huge for us. It is Freedom Baits. You can find them at Cabela's, you can find them at Thorn Brothers, and you can also find them online at www.freedombaits with a Z, Freedom BAITZ Outdoors, freedombaitsoutdoors.com. So check them out. I know a few people are like to ice fish. I think Foster, he likes to ice fish. I don't know if anybody else, but check out their plastics. It's good stuff. So enough. They didn't pay us or anything. He just gave me some free stuff. So I just wanted to shout them out and say, hey, let's support small businesses, especially in the era of COVID. So with that being said, Jack, do we have anything to recap about last episode? Or are we good to move on into the fan interaction zone?
Yeah, I think we're good. I mean, we kind of go over stuff as we cover it quick, so should be good.
Right on. Okay, we're moving on into the fan interaction zone. How to find us and how to get involved. We are on YouTube, believe it or not. They still have not taken us down after multiple attempts by other podcast hosts. You can follow and subscribe to us. 100 follows gets us our own custom URL. Currently, we are sitting at 53. That is fantastic. Thank you very much to all of our supporters out there. Normally, we stream live on Thursdays at 6:30, but being that this is the last episode, that won't be happening for quite some time. If you are watching live, which nobody appears to be doing right now, which is completely unfortunate, hit us up in the chat box. We absolutely love it when we have our fans interacting with us live on the show. If you're not watching live, please comment on our YouTube video, and we will bring it up in the next episode. We do have a podcast comment from the Garlic Johnson, which we will get into shortly. If you're not a YouTuber and you want to subscribe to us on podcast platforms, you can find us at www.anchor.fm/thevictoriouspod. That is our main podcast hub. Please, while you are there, leave us a voicemail. You can find us on all of the podcast platforms: Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, and iHeartRadio. We do have an email, victoriouspod@gmail.com, and we are also on Twitter at victoriouspod. Jack, what's going on here in the notes? You have a new thing? What do you? I'll let you lay this out.
Yeah, probably going to be more for next year, obviously, since this is the last episode. But working on, my buddy is a guy I went to high school with, actually runs his own podcast that's more like Facebook Live based, but the Minnesota Sports Show, if anybody ever wants to check that out. He covers a lot more just like Minnesota sports only, kind of think like K-Fan, but more just casual, fun, hanging out stuff, probably more unfiltered opinions sometimes, so you can go off the rails a little bit more, whereas K-Fan kind of has to be respectable being on air. So really, really cool, though. They cover a lot of stuff. They do a lot of things just from like one Minnesota sports fan to another. And they're really, really big on different platforms as well. So one of the ways that I kind of started listening to them more when I didn't have the chance to have an hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever to sit down and kind of take all their stuff in was they do a lot more work on Instagram. So I was kind of talking to them about some video editing stuff of how to do like 20-30 second clips maybe from our YouTube show or our podcast or whatever, just snippets, and putting those up just to kind of say, hey, you know what, if you can, like, our league members don't always want to sit down and listen to you and me talk or watch us for an hour straight. So that way, if they can kind of get the quick hits or the quick bites here and there. So I'm going to work on that over the off season for next year, just as like one more thing to do. And shout out to them for kind of walking me through that, so to speak.
Social media has been one of our points that we have not really focused on this year. And it's just another thing that we're trying to, another layer to the product that we're trying to push out here. And we hope to be a lot better and more active on social media next season. So thank you to Jack for taking that on. Let us get into our YouTube comment really quick. Garlic last week said, seeing Jack not fully engulfed in darkness is weird. So there's that. Shout out to Garlic for...
This is what happens when you do our show during the daytime. Like right now, I'm actually in the light. So,
well,
back to back for you, Gar.
Yeah, buddy. All right, so we do have a voicemail, and it is from the Garlic Johnson. It is a two-parter, so I'm gonna start it off here with this. If it'll ever load. Why is it not loading? Come on, go. All right, we are gonna try that one more time. Doop 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 doop. This is fantastic. Messages. All right, let's try it again now. Maybe, maybe not. This is absolutely frustrating. I can't. This is just epic fail. I don't understand. One sec. We'll get her figured out. Jack, we'll move on. We will get back to our voicemail. Garlic will not be silenced, whether it be from technical difficulties or whatever. He will not be silenced. So we'll get on to it. So let's just move on here then to our... Oh, what do we got coming up next here? Oh, you have listener-related messages. Why don't we hop into that while I try and figure out what's going on here?
Yes, that is true. Actually, my cousin who listens to our show, Trent, if you're listening today, and also one of their friends who I'm in a different league with, both texted in with a couple of questions. So just wanted to cover them briefly. So I'll toss out the first one, and then we can kind of discuss. And there's a two-parter as well. So question one, if you were the owner or the GM of the Vikings, what would you be looking to do during this offseason as far as like letting coaches or players go, any specific key additions you'd want to bring into the team, draft? Like what are you feeling for what you want to see the Vikings do this offseason as a fan?
As a fan, I want the Vikings to draft offensive line and defensive line. That has been our biggest weak points throughout the season, and it has plagued us, especially on the offensive line side for seasons. Maybe find some way. I'm not saying we have to get rid of Kirk Cousins, but his contract is definitely going to be putting the Vikings in a hole that is going to be hard to dig out of. So whether we have to draft a quarterback and then figure out some way to trade Kirk Cousins, or if we just ride Kirk Cousins out throughout the rest of his contract, and then hopefully the quarterback that we have drafted learns behind Kirk Cousins and flourishes, that would be a way to go too. But figure out something that we have to do with Kirk Cousins' contract and get ourselves a quarterback that we can afford, but can also play to the level of Kirk Cousins. A lot easier said than done, I'm aware, but I think offensive line is probably the biggest glaring point on this team. Jack, what did you have?
Yeah, I'd agree with you on the offensive line. Assuming we end up getting either from pick 9 to 14, somewhere in there, I think we would just take best offensive lineman available. I don't really think there's another glaring issue that's needed as badly as this one. Defensive line, I personally feel a lot better with. I think a lot of Vikings fans are taking for granted or forgetting that we're going to be getting Danielle Hunter next year, and then Michael Pierce is the nose tackle who we signed from the Ravens in the offseason, who I think that guy was going to be a beast. I'm actually a really big fan of him. He's also seems like a good guy to bring in because he was interacting with the fans a lot when he first signed with us. Like I actually got a couple of tweets back from him when he initially signed. So became a fan of him pretty quickly. But those guys I think are big enough to disrupt and improve our pass rush a lot more next year. So if anything, I think we could just maybe use some depth in that, but that's something you can find in free agent signing or maybe third, fourth round picks kind of stuff. So I would definitely focus with offensive line, at least with the first pick, if not our first and our second one. The only other spots I'm kind of worried about, again, we're going to be getting Barr back next year, so linebacker feels a lot better. Corners, both were rookies this year, so I know that we necessarily have to draft more corners to start. Maybe, again, you can always use a backup or a depth piece, but safety is the only other thing that worries me. Obviously we have Harrison Smith, but Anthony Harris, I believe, is a free agent this offseason after we franchise tagged him. So figuring out what we're going to do there, whether it is trying to come to some kind of agreement with him and getting him in for a couple of years long term, or do we let him walk? Do we franchise him again? Do we find another safety either via the draft or the free agency? That could be a big. We could be coming into next season looking at that as a huge gaping hole in the defense if we don't figure something out. So that's kind of all I'm looking at. Feel good with wide receiver. Feel good with tight end with Irv Smith in the future. I mean, I personally am still a fan of Cousins. So barring some amazing opportunity we can get where we're like, oh, hey, we're going to get a first or a second round draft pick, or we're going to get some solid pieces back for trading him. I don't think you're looking to trade him just to get rid of him. I think we can make it work without getting rid of Cousins. And I mean, the dude's probably going to break 4,000 yards passing this year, and he still had a pretty good touchdown to interception ratio. So, I mean, I think you're crazy if you think that's the problem. We just need to get him some help on the offensive line. So that's what I'm thinking. And as far as coaches, I don't think personally that Zimmer should be going anywhere. I think if for some reason we don't make playoffs in 2021, yeah, you gotta look at some stuff, time to maybe change things up, because there's no excuse of why he should miss the playoffs with all those other guys coming back next year. But I think we definitely give him this year to work some stuff out.
Okay, right on. Did you have another one, or do we want to try and get into Garlic quick?
Yes, part two, just really quick. He had mentioned, I didn't have the specific stat, but he was kind of talking about how the Vikings are obviously a very run-first team, and he's like, what do you know of NFL team history-wise, or like, what do you think as far as teams that are predominantly run-first versus pass-first, and how that kind of correlates to winning? From the little bit that I've looked up, I was kind of researching this a little bit just because I thought it was an interesting question, but apparently from 1997 through the last year, only 57% of teams that have made the playoffs had a positive team rushing efficiency. So they were like a top half rushing team, which just kind of shows that like that doesn't correlate to anything. That being said, obviously, if you have a good running team, you can still make the playoffs. But I feel like passing is kind of where you live and die on. So great that the Vikings are a top end rushing team as much as we are, but we got to be able to figure out how to move the ball through the air when we have to. So that still kind of comes back to the offensive line for me. I don't think we'll ever be able to be a true contender or a real threat until we can fix that last piece of our passing.
Yeah, I don't know if necessarily our passing offense this season has been really that bad. With Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson, I think we've really been able to move the ball through the air when we've needed to. Like always, we've had clunkers. We've had games where we haven't been able to run the ball or pass the ball. That's going to happen throughout the season. But overall, from an offensive standpoint, I feel like we have not had any issues being able to move the ball with the dynamic playmakers that we have. So that's just kind of my thought on it. But I would say that how Zimmer and Gary Kubiak are conducting this offense has been successful, and I feel like if our defense was able to keep us in games more, we would be talking about our division-winning team rather than this is the last game of the season, and we'll see you next year.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay, all right, let's try this one more time. The Garlic Johnson. Let's see what happens. It doesn't want to do it. It just doesn't want to do it. I don't understand. My browser, window browser, doesn't want to do it. I don't get it. So let's go to downloads over here. Let's see if we can play that. Dead air, lots of dead air.
You don't happen to know his questions by any chance, do you?
I listened to the voice message actually prior to doing this, so I don't understand why it wouldn't allow me to do it. So, okay. We're going to try this again. Just one more time. So, we want to thank everybody again for being able to check us out. And let's go with this. Can you hear anything? No.
Nope.
All right. It's playing, but can't seem to get it to. Yikes. All right. Garlic Johnson pretty much says thanks. He enjoyed listening to our podcast. Jeez. That is terrible. Oh my God. All right. Right on. Garlic, thanks, man. We appreciate you. I know that you gave us a voice message. I tried I tried to get it to play. I just couldn't. I don't understand why it wouldn't let me do it. It's just being a dick. So that's what it is. Anyway, he swore. Oh shoot. I just got rid of Jack. There he is. Oh noes. This is absolute train wreck.
Garlic, if anything, we blame you because you're supposed to be our assistant to the technology manager. So this is all really your fault if you think about it.
Yeah, you're a technical supervisor.
Our assistant to the regional manager.
Yeah. Right on. Okay. So we're going to move on here, Jack. I have got to figure out how to get you back, and I will here in just a minute on our show page here. So
do you want me to just hop into the next section while you're...
Yeah, we'll hop in. Let's go. Let's roll.
Okay. So there's not a ton to talk about as far as NFL news around the league. I mean, obviously last week we talked about all the playoff scenarios. Most of those are still in play. A lot of them have not been locked up yet, even including the number 1 seed in the NFC. So I believe there is a scenario where even if the Packers win, they don't necessarily get the first round bye. I think if the Packers, Saints, and Seahawks all win, it kind of goes into some weird different ranking. So not get into every single if it's then that what if situation, but we'll have a lot of things to watch for those of you that are following the playoff push here. As far as interesting games or kind of clunker games to watch this week, the most interesting one to me is probably going to be the Steelers and Browns. The Browns do need to win in order to make the playoffs. I believe the 10-5 right now, but could still miss, which is crazy. There's a lot of top end AFC teams right now. I think the Steelers are going to sit some of their top players since they're pretty much locked into either number 2 or number 3 seed. But yeah, really pulling for the Browns to hopefully have a chance to make the playoffs and kind of end their streak and maybe make some noise against the first round opponents. And then game I'm not really excited to watch, the Jets and the Patriots. The Patriots have all but kind of thrown in the towel, saying they're just tanking to get the best draft pick they can. They are already eliminated. The Jets, for some reason, are on a 2-game winning streak and ruin their number 1 overall pick chances. But these two teams, I feel like it's going to be a battle to see who can lose the game. So I would not advise watching. Look away if you can.
Yeah, no, definitely not going to be watching any of that. I don't even know how much football I'm going to be watching today. It's just kind of the last of the lazy Sundays before we start getting into the playoffs for football, which is I will be paying more attention during the playoffs. For me, are you interested in all what the Vikings are going to be doing this today on Sunday?
I mean, I hope we lose, but I also know, I mean, we can get into it in a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I hope we lose just because it'll help our draft picks, but it, I mean, doesn't really matter to me. I think next season's going to be a very different team with additions and stuff. So not super excited.
Okay. Right on. I'm pulling up our notes again here since I had to close out of everything here. So why don't we move on into, are you snacking on anything? We got our bits and bites segment. We can do that.
I mean, I kind of crushed it all already, but I was drinking some coffee out of my little mug here. And then I had some of those like breakfast hash brown stuff. So everything's all gone for me, but yeah, that's where I was at.
So I've got some coffee this morning, which is fantastic. I'm definitely going to need some of that. But also for Christmas, my wonderful in-laws, they gave me these beef sticks. And these beef sticks, these are maple flavored. And they are absolutely delicious here.
So good.
Deal me in. Right on. All right, let's come on, scroll down. My computer's so far behind.
Oh, we got the Vikings segment next.
All right, let's roll on into the Vikings segment.
So they haven't played since we last talked because we had the Christmas game last week with the embarrassing destruction by the Saints. But coming up today, like you mentioned, we're playing at the Lions in Detroit at 12 o'clock. So we got about 45 minutes here before they kick off. 6-9 versus 5-9. If we lose, I believe we would. Well, we would be tied with Detroit for record-wise, but I believe we would leapfrog over them as well. There's, I think, 7 teams right now that are all right around us or right below us. So us losing could put us in play to tie them. Depending on who wins, we could hop all the way up. I think to number 9 is the highest we can go, and down to like 15 is the lowest we could drop. So Really, really key. I mean, you always have some tiers dropping off here, so this could be huge for who we can look at next rookie draft coming up. That's pretty much the only exciting thing to watch here. Dalvin Cook is out. He had a personal issue with a family member passing away. So we'll get a chance to see Madison be the bell cow. He's starting despite being on a concussion protocol last week. So he had kind of a clunker. The one game Cook was out, so that'll probably be the biggest thing I'm watching is to see, hey, do we have anything in Madison here? I mean, like, is he a worthy backup, or do we need to kind of maybe look for the draft for somebody else there? And then I mentioned Cousins is, I think, like 150 yards away from 4,000. So if he gets to that, that'll be nice to get that kind of benchmark. I feel like that separates the average to the above average quarterbacks. And then lastly, I think Justin Jefferson needs around 40 to 45 yards to break Randy Moss's rookie Vikings receiving yardage total. So that would be really, really cool. A record that's probably stood for a long time. And then depending on how dominant of a game he has today will probably decide whether or not he has a real chance for the rookie of the year. I know Herbert still has the odds as the favorite, but if Jefferson can go out and put out a lights out performance, that might be enough to push him over the edge. So those will probably be the three key things I'm watching.
Right on. What do we got going on for our Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Yeah, last week they won a nail biter, 47-7 versus Atlanta. Brady was actually benched after the first half, or towards the end of the first half, just to rest because he already had 348 yards and 4 touchdowns in like 1 3/4 quarters, basically. I mean, bench him about the 30-yard line or so, and then one day later, Blaine Gabbert throws a touchdown to Gronkowski. So I mean, everything was rolling for the Bucs offense. It was really cool to see Brady like that. For all the people that are saying, or that have been saying, oh, he's not looking the same and he's kind of falling off a cliff, like he's still crushing it. Mike Evans had 181 yards and 2 touchdowns, closing in on the 1,000 yards again for the season, and that would be an NFL record for most seasons in a row with that. So hoping he gets there. The Bucs officially locked up a playoff spot. Still could either be number 5 or number 6 seed, but that ends a 13-year drought where the Buccaneers haven't made the playoffs. So really cool for them. This coming week we have that last week was against Detroit, not Atlanta. So this coming week we have them playing Atlanta at Tampa Bay's home stadium. So they finished the regular season in the spot that the Super Bowl will be hosted for probably their last home game, since in the playoffs they'll be playing on the road more than likely. The Falcons don't have anything to play for, so I'm expecting them to probably not try super hard here. Maybe put out some rookies and some young players, but the Bucs can lock up the number 5 seed. Like I mentioned, they will have the top wild card seed guaranteed if they win, which is huge because that means Brady gets to play the winner of the NFC East in the first round of the playoffs, and I don't think you can pick a better matchup. So, really, really solid start for Brady to hopefully get on the hot streak in the playoffs. He also is just under 4,500 yards and 40 touchdowns, so he could hit both of those benchmarks in this game, which would be crazy. I expect him to do it. He's not super far off on the yards. The touchdowns, I think he'd need 4. But to be able to do that, especially in your first season with a new team, all new players, there was basically no off season, so he had no preparation, and the dude's 43. So everybody that was expecting him to take a step back after leaving Belichick, to have him come and put up these kind of numbers, which he hasn't even hit with the Patriots in several years, would be pretty crazy. So I'll be watching that one.
Right on. Good luck to Tom Brady. Good luck to the Bucs. If they lose to the NFC East, you're an embarrassment. So
facts.
All right, we're going to get into our final NFL pick'em here. Jack, you finished the season 12-3, and since the new players came in, you finished 6-2, which is actually right on par with all the other teams, so congratulations. You picked Tampa Bay over Detroit last week, and you were correct. I have finished the season at 7-8. I was an embarrassment, but in the last 6 weeks, I did collect 5 wins, which is awesome. Is that right? Yeah, that should be right. No, that's not right. I collected 4 wins.
last 8 weeks, you got 5.
Yeah, there we go. All right, I picked Chicago over Jacksonville, and that was correct. Dave, he picked Philadelphia over Dallas, and Dallas crushed them. Alex picked Tampa Bay, and he was correct. Garlic, the only one who went 7-1 out of all 4 of them. He picked Kansas City over. It was Atlanta, wasn't it? I believe so.
Yes, that's correct.
And then Josh picked Cleveland over the Jets, in which they lost. Big thanks to Dave. Big thanks to Al. Big thanks to Josh. Big thanks to Gar. And speaking of Gar, here is your message, Garlic.
On, boys. Hope you're having yourselves a happy new year at this point. I figured if I did this for the Land of Goons and didn't do it for you guys, Walters would get proper jealous. So, got to come in here and save a little bit of face, I suppose. But I just want to say I love listening to your guys' podcast based on the fact that I can tell it's a podcast that you guys love making. You're talking about things that you guys love to talk about. Walters loves the production of it. He loves putting on a spectacle, and what's the other guy's name? Jordan really loves the notes, and he loves, having football takes week in and week out. And, sometimes it can get a bit longer, and sometimes, maybe it isn't the most entertaining thing in the world, but you can really appreciate someone for making something that they love and that, they're creating it because they want to, not because they're trying to please someone else. And at the end of the day, oh man, this is going to have to be a two-parter, isn't it? So, fuck.
That was a beep.
So it's obviously you guys do want to make a podcast that people enjoy, but I mean, at the end of the day, if you're miserable making it, everyone else will be miserable listening to it. And so I can tell just by listening, even if, maybe Walters is a little, hashtag panicky or,
a lot,
something's going wrong. There's a technical issue. It happens to all of us. But if you guys are having a good time, we're having a good time at the end of the day. And so that's what I appreciate about your guys' podcast. You're unapologetic about who you are, and you're making something you love. And, at the end of the day, that's all you can really do. Maybe you want to tweak it here and there, get more fans involved, or, maybe Walters, don't try and do a million things before every show because you end up pulling your hair out in the end. But just want to let you guys know I appreciate you doing what you're doing. You got to make a podcast that you love, and then the rest will come. And if the rest doesn't come, that's the way it goes. At least you're having a good time along the way. So, love you guys. And did anyone else notice that all the other callers throughout the year had like a pattern to them? Is it just me, or am I going crazy? Let me know if anyone else saw it. Love you. Bye.
All right, thank you. Big thanks to Garlic out there. I'm glad we finally got it
so
in.
Nice, Gar. We appreciate that.
Yep. We absolutely love making this podcast, even though from time to time, as you've seen today, it's just gone completely off the rails due to unforeseen technical things. But we absolutely are unapologetic about how we make our podcast, how long our podcast is, and we will continue to do so until people with money who are giving us money tell us to change otherwise. So, Jack's just like, yep, okay.
No, I agree. It sounds great. No, I appreciate you saying that, Gar. It's nice to hear. We definitely have some ideas. This is our first real full season long, so we're gonna continue tweaking it and making things work. Yeah, we got some fun ideas for next year. And in the meantime, at least, I mean, we appreciate those that do listen, and we have a good time either way. We're I guess I wouldn't really care if 1,000 people were listening. If I was just dreading it every single week, I probably wouldn't care to do it. So here we are.
Hell yeah, brother. All right. We are going to be moving into our fantasy outlook section of the podcast here. And that means we are going to slide right on into injury prone. And Jack, I see here in the notes that everyone in the NFL is out this weekend due to stubbed double middle fingers, which was presented to 2020 on December 31st at 11:59 p.m. Can you confirm?
Yep. 2020 is one last, shot at the rest of us. They just took every single injured player out. So no football. Everybody's hurt.
Okay, right on. Let's slide into Tater Tot Hot Take. Last week, Jack, you predicted that quarterback Baker Mayfield, who is the quarterback 18, was going to outscore Russell Wilson, quarterback 5, for the fourth week in a row this week. You were completely wrong. It was so bad that I didn't even feel like writing down his stats. Your thoughts on Baker Mayfield this past week?
Yeah, I didn't expect every single Browns wide receiver to get COVID or be on the contact list and not play. So not ideal. I also didn't expect the Jets to actually try to win the game. So those two probably would have changed my mind if they had happened earlier when we recorded the show. But it is what it is. That's why it's cool.
All right, number 2, the running back Myles Gaskin returns off the COVID list as a top 15 running back this week versus the Raiders. That's assuming if he returns to full play. Jack, that prediction was correct. He was actually the number 2 running back in week 16 with some monstrous like 28.5 points or something like that. Your thoughts on Myles Gaskin?
Yeah, I was texting you during the game when he was exploding. I expected him to do well, and the Raiders give up a lot of big runs to running backs, but I did not expect him to do well, obviously. So super cool to see him light it up. He could actually be a legit like franchise running back for the Dolphins going forward. So interesting to see what'll happen with him this year.
All right, and the last one, wide receiver tight end Logan Thomas is a top 20 wide receiver and a top 8 tight end this past week. That was wrong. He finished with 6.8 points. That was, no, I don't even know if it was that. He might have finished with less. I can't remember. It was not good. He did not finish well. So, all right.
Yeah, I didn't expect Haskins to be the quarterback most of the game, and also didn't expect them to just look as terrible as they had been. So Washington kind of disappointed me with a letdown loss.
Yes, sir. All right, we're going to move on to purchaser pass. Jack, what happened last week in week 16, purchase or pass?
Yeah, I'll go through these kind of quickly just since we're covering overall fantasy stuff so we can get into our things quick. But the 3 last purchaser passes, I said Lev Bell is going to be a top 20 running back in his first start with Clyde Edwards. He's terrible. I said purchase. I don't know what he ended up at. I know it was not a top 20 running back. So you were correct there.
Jack,
number 2, I said Trubisky would put up 20 or more points against the Jaguars after 18. Sorry, what?
Are you on your Wi-Fi on your laptop?
I am not. I'm plugged in.
Okay, right on. Sounds good. Go ahead and move along with number 2, purchase or pass.
Number 2, Trubisky puts up 20 points or more against Jacksonville after he had 18, 13, 25, and 13. We both purchased it, and he did indeed do that. He lit it up again. So Trubisky, surprisingly, is looking decent at the end of the season here. Last one, purchase or pass. The NFC East will actually get to 500. We both purchased thinking Washington would win their game, and they lost, and now there is no way that the NFC East will be at a 500, which is just embarrassing and gross.
Okay.
And that is it for purchase or pass this year.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's get on to our water bet board. Jack, did you have any new water bets that you wanted to toss out?
Nothing new, just since we're going to be not having a next episode this season. So I was just going to kind of rattle off some of the ones that we had throughout the year. I've tried not to recap these every week, so it wasn't super long, but I kind of compiled the list to show you guys where we're sitting. There are a few that are still pending, so we'll make the official announcement of who wins between me and you, Walters, after this coming week. But really quick here. Mike Evans gets to 1,000 yards. Walter said yes. I said no. It's looking like he probably will get there. It's going to be close. He needs, I think, a little over 100 yards, so you got to imagine they're going to try to feed him the ball, but we will see. Number 2, does Derrick Henry break 2,000 yards this season? You said yes. I said no. He needs 223 yards, which is very possible from him. He's done that a couple times this season with 200 yards or more, but it's going to be tough, so we will announce that later as well. Tyreek versus Devontae Adams for the leader of touchdowns through the regular season. Devontae, I believe, is winning at 17 versus 15. So again, we'll announce that later. We had another bet picking. You got to pick 2 out of 6 teams in the playoffs to win the championship. We'll cover that in a little bit, but let's just say that you won that one. You were correct there. We did a Kiki QT versus Brandon Cooks for the rest of the season. You picked QT. I picked Brandon Cooks. As of now, QT is at 35.2 and Cooks is at 43. Could easily change this week depending on who has a big week, but that one I am currently winning in. Baltimore misses the play. Yes, you said no. They are currently number 6 seed, but I believe there's about 5 different teams that could make it at 10-5 right now. So 2 still to come. Jalen Hurts averages more than 16.5 points the rest of the season. He's blown that away, so you easily won that one. Michael Thomas is not a wide receiver 1 from like week 8 whenever he came back rest of season. He was not, and then he got put on IR, so I got that one. Vikings make one of the wild card spots. They are not going to, so you win that one. I guess that Dan Quinn would be fired before Mike Zimmer. I was correct there. Whether CMC is a running back 1, you said he would be when he came back. You said he would be. I said he wouldn't be. He is not because he's not playing again this week, so I win there. You were correct. I can finally talk about the hidden secret bet that Ryan will not change his team name the entire damn season, and he didn't. So you are correct there. We went head-to-head on James Conner versus Benny Snell. I won with picking James Conner. We also went head-to-head with Calvin Ridley versus DK Metcalf. It's very, very close. Ridley's at 115. Metcalf's at 108.6. You're winning by 7, so we have one more week to play and see what happens. Ryan Fitzpatrick was not traded before the trade deadline, which I won. Jets win more than one game. You said yes. I said no. You did win thanks to these last 2 stupid weeks. We originally said whether the Vikings would win 4 games. I said yes, and I did win that one. And then head-to-head daily fantasy points, I am currently winning by a hefty margin, so I think I'm going to take that one, but still to come. So as of now, if I added all my stuff up right, we'll make sure once the season's over. But I am at 8, you're at 5, but there's 5 still to go, and you're currently winning, I think, 4 out of the 5. So it's leaning your way, but it's going to come down to the wire.
Fun fact, I'm still not going to set my DFS lineup, so just chalk that one up. So
fair enough.
It's not going to matter. Plus, I'm busy right now. So, all right, we are going to get into our next item here, and that means that we're going to get into the podcast host playoff challenge real quick. We're just going to quickly recap that. As you can see on the screen here, Alex and Josh were going at it. And over on Alex's team, he had Jalen Hurts have 18.6, Delvin Cook had 14.5, Austin Eckler had 12.8, DeAndre Hopkins 4.8, Justin Jefferson 8.5, TJ Hawkinson 2.3, Stephon Diggs with the monster 32.5, Browns defense 6, and Younghoe Koo had 1 point. For a total of 101 points. Alex, nice job, but it wasn't anywhere near enough because Josh put up a massive 188 points last week to win the playoff challenge. Josh had Deshaun Watson go for 26.8, Aaron Jones 10.8, Alvin Kamara a ridiculous 53.2, Devontae Adams a ridiculous 32.2, Robert Woods 4.9, Mark Andrews 7.6, Stephon Diggs 32.5, the Ravens defense 10, and Will Lutz 10 as well. And like I said, 188 points in standard scoring. Josh's dynasty team is ridiculous. So I'm pretty sure that team won a championship this year. So congrats to Josh. Alex, Garlic, myself, and Jack should all Venmo Josh $10 for winning the playoff podcast challenge. Jack, do you have anything to say on that?
No, not really. It was pretty fun. It was a cool, different idea. So we'll have to try to bring this back next year. Maybe we open up to the rest of the league and do it as like a side bet thing. If Tyler's open to that, we could always use some of the league money to do like a giveaway thing for there. But yeah, it's more to come with this one. It has some cool possibilities.
Right on. Okay. Let us move on to the Victoria's Secret. We are going to be talking about our matchups here, so let's just move on over to our matchups, and we're going to go over here to that transition. All right, this is Tyler versus Ben. Tyler beat Ben. Is that the right score? Last week? Yeah, that's
113
right
to 94.
Yeah, there we go. I was looking at the wrong one. 113 to 94. That is correct. Tyler is the winner. Russell Wilson put up 19.9. Dalvin Cook 14.5. Nelson Aguilar 21.5. Jeff Wilson Jr. 26.4. Over on Ben's side, he had Deshaun Watson go for 26.7. Nick Chubb had 12.6. Aaron Jones 10.8. And Greg Zerline had 13. Congratulations to Tyler for winning third place. Jack, what did you see in this matchup? You're muted.
It was really surprising seeing some of Tyler's receivers finally go off. I mean, Russell Gage didn't do a whole lot, but Nelson Aguilar getting 155 and a touchdown is pretty crazy. Everybody else was pretty consistent for Tyler. So, I mean, Ben's team was all right, but just not quite enough. I mean, third place only matters so much, but these two teams are pretty dominant throughout most of the season. So expect to probably see them again in the playoffs next year, since they both usually are. Ben goes from first place last year to fourth place this year, but you're top 4 in 2 seasons in a row. So that's pretty solid in a redraft league.
Right on. Let us move on to our championship game. That would be me versus Josh. And Josh scored 90.9 points compared to my 129.7 points. That's right, folks. I am your 2020 Victorious Fantasy Football League champion. Thank you very much. It was an awesome ride. Over on my side of the ball, I had Josh Allen go for 32.3 points. I had Stephon Diggs go for 32.5 points. Travis Kelce had 15.8. And my kicker, Daniel Carlson, had 12. Over on Josh's side, Patrick Mahomes had 19.2. Ezekiel Elliott had 13.9. J.K. Dobbins had 13.7. Deontay Johnson, 13.6. And his kicker, Will Lutz, had 10. Jack, this was a fun matchup. What did you see in this championship matchup?
Unfortunately, it seemed almost over before it started. I mean, you came out and put up a lot of points very, very quickly. So Josh, I know, was holding out hope for a couple of the later Sunday night games and Monday night, but didn't really even make it to Monday night. The biggest thing for me was, I think if I added up right, your team scored 10 total touchdowns on offense versus his team only scoring 4. So that was the big difference maker. I mean, he still put up 90, but 6 more touchdowns would have added up to a lot more for him. So that Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs connection, I talked about it to you like week 2 or 3 when we were doing the podcast, that was going to be your key, and that just happened at the right week. I mean, basically 7 touchdowns combined between the two of them, with 3 out of Allen's 4 going to Diggs. It's tough to come back from. Mike Davis, Melvin Gordon, I mean, nothing super exciting, but they did what they needed to do to keep your team afloat. And then, I mean, Kelsey's been a huge pickup for you all year, so that was key. You do 3 straight rounds of the playoffs with putting up 127 or more points, which is pretty absurd. And then I don't know what's crazier to me, just odds wise, because I mean, it is a redraft league, so season to season means nothing. But the fact that you took last year and then this year, plus the fact that Josh takes second place in back-to-back years, both those are pretty crazy to me. I mean, it's fluky, obviously. So like Josh taking second, it could go either way. Just depends, is pretty remarkable. And then, like I said with yours, I mean, not that you taking last place really affects anything to the next year, but to bounce back from that, a lot of times people who take last, like, you just assume, oh, they're not paying attention, or like they don't really know what they're doing with fantasy here and there. So like it shows that good break, a bad break, it can happen either way, and you did it basically without your first round pick. So that's also pretty crazy to me. Talked about it last week too. You officially completed the sweep of the beating the number 1, 2, and 3 seeds in the playoffs. So I gotta imagine that's the first time that's happened, as well as your worst first thing. So pretty crazy championship round and just season overall.
I'm pretty sure I broke playoff records. We mentioned the sweeping of the 1, 2, and 3 seeds throughout the playoffs as a number 6 seed. Also, I am pretty sure I have set a league record in the number of total points scored during the playoffs, and I've had to have broken the average points per game in the playoffs when I average over 120 points each week of the playoffs in a standard scoring season, or even a half point PPR. That is awesome. So I'm really excited about the dominance my team showed throughout the playoffs. So hell yeah, brother.
Finally got that pesky winless Super Bowl record off of you too.
Yes, sir. Tyler, you can contact me for shipping details for the trophy. I would expect that as soon as possible, please. I don't even care if there's a nameplate. I'll go to Sterling Trophy and put my own nameplate on it. I just want that damn trophy hanging in my house.
Finally,
yeah. All right, that is gonna do it for our league stuff. I don't think there's really anything else going on. Let's talk a little bit about the Guillotine League. Josh won. I don't know what the score was after I got ousted from the Guillotine League. I never really paid attention to it again, so that was kind of all Jack's thing. Jack, did you notice how Josh did?
It wasn't close. I know when I looked earlier, Josh was up by a lot on Dave last week. Dave, I think, was definitely the underdog coming into it, considering Josh's team was pretty dominant from early on in the season. He was number 1 or number 2 in points scored all along. So not a huge surprise, but crazy the consistency level, because I think we were all waiting for just 1 week where Josh's team was down. And didn't really happen. So can he repeat it next year, assuming we do this again? I don't know. I just hope to God that the guillotine format is a little bit better, because that whole website was brutal. So we need an app or something.
I would agree. If we can find a different way of doing it, that would be awesome. Otherwise, if we have to stick with guillotineleagues.com, that would be fine as well. Moving on to our Dynasty League, the Deflate These Balls League. Jack, you were in the third place game. How did you do?
I won. Alex had a bunch of guys on COVID, and so I put a couple of guys in there as well, and my team just still played better. So not that it really matters for either of us, because it's not really a money game going on, but Jeff Wilson pretty much carried mine. So winning third place, I mean, that's solid. I was happy I got a playoff win this year, and being in the top four is cool. I feel like I'm probably a contender either way next year. Maybe not like a top end, but I feel safe to at least make the playoffs, depending on what I can do to kind of fix my quarterback situation, and then running backs as well. So hoping I can maybe look at maybe my second round pick, getting like a Justin Fields or another mid top quarterback, and have somebody I can rely on in Dynasty forever. But 2 first round picks in the draft, so not a clue what I'm going to do with them, since I've never been in a Dynasty rookie draft. But the future is bright. Happy with my season overall, considering I didn't know what I was doing.
Right on. I feel the same way. I was in the Dynasty League Championship against Andrew Falk, and I took that one down as well. So 2020, it's been a weird year, man. Taking down 2. I just feel like I'm dripping with championships now. So it's just fantastic. I'm kind of in the same boat you are with what am I going to be doing with my team? How do I feel? Do I feel like Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to put up the numbers that he put up last year, for bring my team to the playoffs? He was a huge staple in my team, along with Derrick Henry. So I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do my draft. I know that I do need a quarterback. I think I want one more running back to help solidify that position, because David Johnson was so up and down this year, but he was a very, very solid running back too. Question marks in with my wide receivers. Mike Evans, he's getting older all the time. But then I also had Cortland Sutton, who was on IR all season. And then DJ Moore, we thought we would take a giant step this year. He had some great games and he had some terrible games, so it's hard to judge where his trajectory is headed right now. So, just the main 3, looking at quarterback, wide receiver, running back. Those are going to be my needs, and I need to assess what I'm going to address first. I'm not sure. I've got the last pick in the first round, and actually out of all the rounds, I didn't do any trading or anything like that. So we'll see how my draft goes this year. But I want to thank Alex, and I want to thank everybody else for playing along in the Dynasty League. This is my first Dynasty League, and I had a lot of fun doing it. So we'll see how it goes. I will say, though, that I am scared of Garlic Johnson's team for next year. He has got some guys, and if he is able to draft, well, he is definitely going to be a powerhouse. It is too bad that he decided to tank all year, because he could have been very, very good. Moving on, we are going to add our Hood DFS play along. I forgot to set my lineup last week. I'm not going to set it up again this week. Big deal. Jack, you did pretty well, but you don't think you're going to have enough to be able to catch the number 1 spot?
Yeah, I'm currently number 3 overall right now, so pretty exciting that I'm at least that far, but I think I'm 40 points behind the number 1 guy, barring him finally having a terrible week. I mean, I've been pretty consistent with mine getting 90 to 100 at least every week, but it's not going to matter unless he does it. So I'm trying to do a couple of stacks this week and see if I can do like a boomer bust, because if you take second or below, it doesn't really matter. So we will see. It's been fun either way. So another nice addition of something else to do, something else to play for.
I think I was looking at the screenshot that Garlic or Josh posted in the chat. I'm either just outside the top 10 or just inside the top 10 after missing a week, so that just tells you how good I was doing this year. 10. Yeah, there you go. Right there, right on the nuts. All right. Moving on into one of our final segments here, we have the preseason bold predictions. Jack, what were your preseason bold predictions this year?
So I went through, I think I made about 7 or 8. A couple of them that were completely wrong, I didn't cover, but 5 that I surprisingly got right. These were kind of out there at the time, but Daniel Jones, a lot of people were talking about him having hype coming into the season. He was ranked, I think, as QB like 8 or 9, expecting him to take a step forward. With his second year, he had the running ability. He had Saquon. People figured he would obviously play the entire year and not be hurt. So people were drafting him highly. I can't remember what number Katie took him at, but I know it was at least top 12. I said Daniel Jones, not believing the hype. I don't think he's going to be close to a QB1. I think he's a decent quarterback, but he has an awful schedule. So I said that you should be taking him way lower than he was. I was correct. He was QB 24. So he was barely even good enough to be a QB2 on the year. Like wasn't even rostered worthy. Number 2, I got right. I said Austin Hooper versus Hayden Hurst, which was last year's number 1 tight end versus number 35 tight end. I projected that Hurst would have more points than Hooper, and Hooper wouldn't even be a top 10. So I kind of didn't give myself the out of like, oh, they were both good. I was correct on that. Hurst had 84 points, Hooper had 57. Obviously, Hooper missed a few weeks, but he was tight end 23 on the year. So correct there. Didn't believe that his tight end 1 would carry over. Number 3, this one I was probably the most proud of. I predicted that Deshaun Watson, comparing his 2019 season versus this 2020 season at the time that was upcoming, I projected he would have more points, as many or more points this year, even without DeAndre Hopkins compared to 2019. 2019, he had 332, and it started out looking pretty rough this year, but he ended at 343 this year so far, and he's still got a week to play. So shattered that one. I was pretty pumped there. And then my out there one, I believed that Michael Thomas would not be the number 1 or number 2 wide receiver. I think you pushed me at the time on the first episode to say, well, like, where do you think he'd be? And I was like, I don't see, like, I want to be bold, probably not 3 or 4, maybe 5 if he plays the whole season. Luckily, got hurt, so that kind of affected it, but I was correct. He was not even close. And even when he did come back and play, he wasn't even really a wide receiver 2. So those are my 4 that I got right, and I was pumped about that. So we'll try that again next offseason.
Right on. That, yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. Next season is going to be a little bit different. There might be some shakeups in our league a little bit. Things that we're going to have to talk about, especially when it comes to scheduling, since the NFL is adopting a 17-game schedule next season. So that is going to affect our playoffs. Are we going to do a 4-week playoff? Are we going to stick with a 3-week playoff? If we do that, does that mean we're going to be bumping our playoffs back a whole week? So, I mean, a lot of interesting things are going to be coming up in our 2021 fantasy football season as well. So we're going to just figure out what we're going to do. So I just wanted to put that little seed in your brain. I know it's, just kind of random. But, there are things that we're going to have to think about, and how do we want to make our league better, or do we want to keep it status quo with the changes in the NFL that are coming? So with that being said, Jack, how did your other teams do in your playoff this year?
Yeah, I talked about the Dynasty League already taken 3rd. I lost in the semis in another league last week and took 3rd in that this week as well. The 2 that I made the championship in, one I've already locked up. That was the work league. I won the championship in. And the other one, it is a weird week 16, week 17 combination score. I think I ended the week at 120 versus 88. So I've got a solid almost 40-point lead there, and feeling pretty good. That team is pretty stacked for my end. So should have 2 championships this year, and kind of spread across the board for a couple high end, couple mid, couple low end. But yeah, it was fun overall. I'm just happy we got to play with all the COVID stuff going on. So
we did make it through the year of COVID. It is ridiculous. I didn't know if we were going to be able to do it or not. I'm glad we did. It was a bumpy ride, but we sure did make it. Just to let you guys know, if Jack locks up both of those championships, that would be a total of 4 championships and a 3rd place team. So yeah, I mean, I kind of think we know what we're talking about, don't we? I mean, that just proves it right there, right?
I don't know if Al won any of his championships or not. I'd love to hear how the other podcast hosts do. I know Dave
Josh
lost, or Dave took 2nd place in the guillotine. I know Josh won his dynasty, and a couple of other ones that we had running along. So it seems like all podcast hosts did pretty well. Gar, I don't know about you, but like Walter said, I'm feeling good for your dynasty team next year if you for some reason choose to not tank. So solid year all around.
Yeah, it was. No, I think everybody. I don't think Al did win. He lost his championship matchup in a heartbreak in his Land of 10,000 Goons. league. So that was tough, TUF tough to be able to listen to, but that's all right. Jack, I think we finally made it through with all the clunkiness and just kind of
God, we did it.
The S show that was put on, but that's all right. It wouldn't be fun if it wasn't live, so we just want to thank everybody for bearing with us, and it was pretty rough at the beginning, but I think we made it through all right. So that is going to do it for us, and I'm going to start off by playing some of our music here. I want to thank our listeners. I want to thank them for hanging out with us. I want to thank them for supporting us all season. Jack, I want to thank you for all your hard work, your dedication, your love of football, and this podcast to put in. It has really been a blessing working with you this season. I'm going to give you the last shot off. I'm not going to say anything for the rest of the podcast, so you got a minute and 40 till the music stops, so if you want to take it all, take it. Otherwise, have a great one, everybody. Jack, let's hear it.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Super fun to have a full season beginning to end where we actually did everything we wanted to do. I feel like we got some consistency in this year with some fun segments, some play along stuff. Hopefully we can get a little bit more interaction from the league and other non-league listeners next year. So we'll try to come up with some more fun games for you guys. But yeah, excited just to have some continuity where we can go into next season not scrambling and being like, what are we going to do? What are we going to talk about? We can just take the blueprint from one to the other. Would love to hear some off-season feedback from people, what you guys want to see. If you got ideas for games or segments or want to be on the pod sometime, let us know. Either way, though, we're excited to keep it going. I think we're both relieved that we made it past the mid-November benchmark where we quit last year. So we got a full season under our belts. Suck at anybody who didn't believe in us, and excited to see what the playoffs bring, guys. Thanks for a good season.